The city lay in ruins beneath a gray sky, the smell of smoke and decay lingering in every street. Anna and her group had escaped the silent district, but their journey had left them exhausted and weary. The survivors walked carefully through the shattered roads, eyes darting to shadows, listening for any sign of movement. They came across a massive structure, an old factory, long abandoned but still standing. Its broken windows looked like dark eyes staring down at them. "This will be our shelter for the night," Anna said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed the tension. Inside, the factory was a labyrinth of machinery and debris. The group cautiously explored, setting up barricades at entrances. The horde from the silent district might follow them, and every creak of metal made hearts pound. They lit small fires in rusted barrels, the flickering flames casting long shadows across the walls, giving life to the dust and cobwebs that hung in every corner. Anna whispered instructions to the others, organizing watches, and checking weapons. Every sound outside made the group tense. The world had changed. Nothing could be taken for granted. As night fell, strange noises echoed through the factory. Anna's flashlight caught glimpses of shadowy figures moving outside. Was it the wind, or something worse? The survivors huddled together, every small sound amplified in the darkness. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the upper floors. "Stay calm," Anna commanded, her hand on her makeshift spear. Slowly, they ascended a narrow staircase to investigate. They found an overturned crate, and a small, emaciated zombie, trapped beneath it, groaning in desperation. The group worked quickly. They knew any delay could attract more. This encounter reminded them all, no place was safe. Exploring further, the survivors discovered hidden rooms filled with supplies, canned food, bottled water, and even some medical kits. The factory had once been a warehouse, abandoned in the chaos of the apocalypse. Anna's eyes narrowed. "This place is dangerous, but it could be our lifeline. We need to fortify it and plan for the worst." The survivors split into teams, checking for weak points in the walls and broken doors. Every floor echoed with the groans of the undead outside, keeping the group on edge. But in the midst of fear, there was a glimmer of hope, resources that might keep them alive longer. Suddenly, a soft knock came from the far side of the factory. Anna froze. "Who's there?" she called. From the shadows emerged a lone survivor, a man named Elias, carrying a worn backpack and a rusted shotgun. He had been hiding in the city ruins for months. Suspicious at first, the group decided to trust him, but Anna could sense that he held secrets. Elias revealed a map of safe zones scattered across the city, places where small groups had survived. But he warned them, some areas were now overrun, or worse, controlled by new, unknown predators that weren't zombies. Just as the group began to relax, a horde descended on the factory. Anna and the survivors fought fiercely, using fire, makeshift weapons, and clever traps they had set. The factory echoed with the sounds of struggle, the snapping of bones, groans, and shouted commands. Elias proved himself useful, taking down zombies with precision. But even as the group survived the initial wave, Anna realized this was only the beginning. The city was changing, the horde was evolving, and staying in one place too long was now more dangerous than ever. The battle outside the factory had finally gone quiet. For the moment, the survivors stood among broken machinery and scattered debris, breathing heavily. The distant groans of the undead echoed faintly from outside the thick factory walls, but the immediate danger seemed to have passed. Anna slowly lowered her spear. "Everyone still breathing?" she asked. Marcus leaned against a rusted control panel, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Barely," he muttered. David kicked a loose bolt across the floor. The sound echoed far longer than it should have in the vast building. "That was too close." Lucas nodded nervously. "And too loud." They all knew what that meant. Noise attracted the dead. Anna turned toward Elias. The stranger had fought well during the attack. His shotgun now hung empty at his side, smoke still curling faintly from the barrel. "You said you've been surviving in this city for months," Anna said. "Then tell me something." Elias looked at her. "Are we safe here?" For a moment he didn't answer. Then he slowly shook his head. "No place is safe anymore." A deep metallic creak echoed from somewhere above them. Everyone froze. The factory was enormous. Several floors of rusted walkways, broken machines, and dark corridors stretching into shadow. Any sound inside it could travel far, and hide where it came from. Lucas looked up. "You hear that?" Another sound followed. Clang. Something had moved. Marcus lifted his rifle. Probably just the wind. But Anna wasn't convinced. Factories like this were full of loose metal, hanging chains, and unstable structures. Wind could easily move things. But something about the sound felt wrong. Deliberate. Anna raised her flashlight toward the upper catwalks. Dust floated through the beam of light like drifting snow. For several seconds, nothing moved. Then Elias quietly whispered, "Up there." A faint shape shifted behind a row of hanging chains. Anna's heart sank. A pair of pale arms slowly reached through the metal links. Then another, and another. Zombies. Dozens of them. They had been trapped on the upper level, wandering the catwalks in darkness. The noise from the battle outside had drawn them closer. Now they were waking. Marcus cursed under his breath. Fantastic. One of the infected stepped too close to the edge of the catwalk. Rusted metal groaned beneath its weight. Crash. The creature fell 2 floors, slamming into a pile of old machine parts below. The sound echoed like thunder through the factory. For half a second, everything went silent. Then the entire building erupted with movement. Groans, dragging feet, metal chains rattling. From every dark corner of the factory, the dead were waking up. Anna immediately raised her weapon. "Everyone back toward the loading area," she ordered. "But that leads deeper into the building," Lucas protested. Anna shook her head. "The main doors are too exposed." More infected began climbing down the staircases and broken ladders from above. They were everywhere. Elias reloaded his shotgun. "Looks like this factory had more workers than we thought." Anna glanced down the long corridor ahead. Darkness waited there. Unknown. But staying here meant certain death. She took a deep breath. Move. The survivors ran deeper into the iron maze of the abandoned factory, while the horde slowly followed behind them. The survivors ran through the dark corridor, their footsteps echoing across the massive factory floor. Rusted pipes lined the walls, and broken conveyor belts hung above them like skeletal remains of a forgotten industry. Behind them, the groans of the infected grew louder. They were coming. Anna led the group through a wide steel doorway and into a huge chamber. The air inside felt warmer, thick with the smell of rust, oil, and old smoke. Marcus looked around. What is this place? Elias stepped forward, shining his flashlight across the room. The beam revealed enormous circular furnaces built into the floor, surrounded by heavy metal platforms and control stations. The furnace room, Elias said quietly. Before the collapse, molten steel would have poured through these massive machines day and night. Now the furnaces were cold, silent monuments to a world that no longer existed. Lucas ran toward a large steel lever mounted on a wall. "Hey, look at this." Anna moved quickly beside him. The lever was connected to a large sliding gate that hung above the corridor they had just entered. An idea formed in her mind. "If we close that gate," she said, "we can slow them down." Marcus nodded immediately. "Do it." Lucas grabbed the lever and pulled with all his strength. For a moment nothing happened. Then the ancient machinery groaned to life. Metal gears screamed in protest as the huge gate above the corridor began slowly sliding downward. Behind them, the first zombies appeared in the hallway. Pale faces, dead eyes. They stumbled forward, drawn by the noise and movement. "Faster!" David shouted. Lucas strained against the lever. The gate continued lowering. 5 feet, 4 feet, 3. The infected began to push through the narrowing gap. One of them slipped through just before the gate slammed shut with a deafening crash. The creature stumbled across the furnace floor, arms reaching blindly toward the survivors. Marcus stepped forward and swung a metal pipe. Crack! The zombie collapsed instantly. For a moment the group stood in silence. Then the pounding began. The trapped horde outside had reached the gate. Dozens of rotting hands slammed against the steel barrier. Boom! 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 The entire gate trembled under the pressure. David looked uneasy. That thing going to hold? Elias studied the rusted frame carefully. For a while, he said. Anna exhaled slowly. Good. They had bought themselves time. But as she turned to examine the rest of the furnace room, her flashlight revealed something strange on the far wall. Footprints. Fresh ones. Not zombie tracks. Human. Marcus noticed them too. You see that? Anna nodded. We're not the first people here. Lucas suddenly whispered from near the furnace controls. Ah, guys. They turned. He pointed toward the dark upper balcony overlooking the furnace room. Something had moved there. A shadow. Then another. Anna raised her flashlight. The beam swept across the balcony railing. For a split second it revealed a figure standing there. Not a zombie. A person. Watching them. Then the figure vanished back into the darkness. Marcus whispered, gripping his weapon tighter. Looks like we're not alone. Anna stared at the dark balcony. The factory had just become even more dangerous. Because sometimes, the living were worse than the dead. The furnace room fell silent. Everyone stared at the dark balcony above them where the figure had appeared only seconds earlier. The faint glow of Anna's flashlight slowly scanned the railing again, but now it was empty. Marcus tightened his grip on the metal pipe. You all saw that, right? David nodded. Yeah. That wasn't one of them. Lucas looked nervous. Maybe it was just someone passing through. Anna shook her head slowly. No, her instincts told her otherwise. Someone had been watching them. And they had disappeared far too quickly to be surprised travelers. Anna stepped forward toward the metal staircase that led up to the balcony. Each step creaked under her weight as she began climbing. "Anna," Marcus whispered. "Careful." But she continued upward. The higher she climbed, the darker the room below became. The survivors looked smaller from above, their flashlights forming small pools of light across the giant furnace machines. When Anna reached the top of the stairs, she paused. The balcony stretched across the entire room, lined with old control panels and broken computer monitors. Dust covered everything, except one section. Footprints. Fresh ones. Anna followed them slowly along the narrow walkway. The air was colder up here, and strangely quiet. Then she heard it, a faint metallic click behind her. "Don't move." The voice was calm, but firm. Anna slowly raised her hands. From the shadows behind a row of control cabinets, 3 figures stepped forward. All armed. The first was a tall man with a thick beard and a rifle slung over his shoulder. His clothes were worn but well maintained, someone who had survived a long time. Next to him stood a younger woman holding a pistol, her eyes sharp and alert. The third was a teenager gripping a crossbow with shaky hands. The bearded man studied Anna carefully. "You picked the wrong factory," he said. Anna glanced toward the staircase behind her where the rest of her group waited below. "We didn't know anyone lived here." The woman spoke next. "Well, now you do." For a moment no one moved. Below them, the pounding against the gate continued. Boom, boom, boom. The sound echoed through the entire factory. The bearded man glanced toward the noise and sighed. "You brought them." Anna frowned. "They were already here." "Not like this," he replied. Another heavy impact shook the metal gate downstairs. The teenager looked nervous. "Dad, the gate won't hold forever." Anna's eyes narrowed. "You've been holding them here." The man nodded. 4 weeks. The woman stepped closer, lowering her pistol slightly. "We turned the factory into a trap." Anna realized what she meant. The furnace room, the gates, the narrow corridors. This place had been designed to control the movement of the infected. But the arrival of Anna's group had just changed everything. The bearded man finally lowered his rifle slightly. "How many are with you?" "5. And you?" "3," he answered. For a moment both sides stared at each other in silence. Then another loud crash echoed from below. The gate had begun to bend. The man sighed again. "Well, looks like we all have the same problem now." Anna lowered her hands slowly. "Then maybe we should stop pointing weapons at each other." Another massive boom shook the furnace room. The gate below screamed under the pressure. The dead were getting closer. And soon, they would all be fighting together. Or dying separately. The furnace room trembled again. This time the impact was stronger. Below the balcony, the massive steel gate that Lucas had lowered earlier was beginning to bend inward. Rusted bolts popped loose one by one, shooting across the concrete floor like small bullets. Boom, boom, boom. Each strike from the horde outside shook the entire structure. Marcus stared at the gate from below. "That thing is not going to hold much longer." Anna turned toward the 3 survivors on the balcony. "Your trap? How does it work?" The bearded man answered quickly. We funnel them through the furnace corridors. Narrow passages. Easier to control. But if that gate fails, the woman added, they'll flood the entire factory. Another violent crash echoed through the chamber. Crack. The metal frame around the gate split open. Lucas looked up toward Anna. Anna. She already knew. They were out of time. Anna turned back to the bearded man. What's your name? Victor. All right, Victor, Anna said firmly. Either we work together or none of us make it out of here. Victor studied her face for a moment. Then he nodded. Agreed. Below them the first metal bolt shot loose from the gate and bounced across the floor. The teenager with the crossbow swallowed nervously. That was the last support. Anna immediately shouted down to her group. Everyone get ready. Marcus grabbed a heavy metal rod from the floor. David loaded the last rounds into his rifle. Elias checked his shotgun and muttered quietly, let's make them count. Victor turned to the young girl beside him. Clara, you stay behind the control panels. I can fight, she protested. Later, he replied firmly. The woman beside him, Maya, stepped toward the stairs with her pistol ready. Anna met her halfway. You good with that thing? Maya smirked slightly. Better than most. Then it happened. The final blow came like thunder. The gate ripped loose from its frame with a deafening metallic scream. Crash. The heavy steel barrier slammed onto the furnace floor. For half a second, nothing moved. Then pale hands appeared over the fallen metal. One zombie crawled across, then another, then 10 more. Within seconds the entire corridor filled with the infected pouring into the furnace room. Marcus shouted, "Here they come!" The first zombie lunged forward, jaws snapping wildly. Crack! Marcus smashed its skull with the metal rod. David fired his rifle. Bang! Another zombie collapsed. Above them, Victor fired his rifle from the balcony. Maya's pistol cracked sharply through the air. Anna moved like a storm through the chaos, driving her spear through the chest of one infected and pulling it free just in time to block another. But the horde kept coming. Dozens now flooded the furnace room. More climbed over the fallen gate every second. Lucas backed toward one of the giant furnaces. There's too many. Anna quickly scanned the room. The machines, the pipes, the furnaces. Then she saw it, a massive valve connected to one of the old gas lines. An idea flashed through her mind. Dangerous, very dangerous, but it might save them. Anna shouted over the noise of the battle. Victor. He looked down from the balcony. Can those furnaces still ignite? Victor followed her gaze toward the valve. His eyes widened. You're thinking of burning them? Anna nodded. Victor hesitated. If that works, it'll take out half the factory. Anna drove her spear into another zombie. We won't be alive to worry about the factory. Victor cursed under his breath. Then he shouted back, Clara, open the ignition controls. The teenager hesitated. Dad, that could blow the whole place. Victor chambered another round in his rifle. Just do it. Below them the horde was now flooding across the entire furnace floor. Anna gripped the gas valve. Everyone get ready to run. Because in the next few seconds, the furnace room was about to become an inferno. The horde flooded across the furnace floor like a wave of death. Dozens of infected stumbled over the fallen gate, climbing over each other in their hunger to reach the living. The groans echoed through the vast chamber, mixing with the metallic clang of weapons and gunfire. Anna tightened her grip on the massive gas valve. "Victor!" she shouted. Now, above her, Clara stood frozen in front of the old ignition control panel. The rusted switches looked like relics from another century. Her hands trembled. I don't know if it still works." Victor's voice cut through the chaos. "Just try." Clara took a deep breath and flipped the large red switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Anna began twisting the gas valve open. A loud hiss filled the room as ancient pipes groaned and released trapped gas into the air. The smell spread quickly across the furnace chamber. Marcus immediately realized what was happening. "Oh hell!" He grabbed Lucas by the arm. "Everyone back." The survivors began retreating toward the far side of the room as the gas spread. Below the balcony, zombies continued stumbling forward through the invisible cloud, unaware of the danger. Clara slammed another lever down. Still nothing. Victor fired another shot into the approaching horde. "Come on." Anna turned the valve completely open. The hiss became a roar. Gas now poured freely from the old furnace lines. The entire chamber was filling. Maya looked up at Clara. "Try the manual spark." Clara scanned the control panel and spotted a small metal handle on the side of the ignition box. She grabbed it. "Here goes." She pulled it down. For half a second, nothing. Then, crack, a bright spark jumped from the ignition coil. The furnace room exploded with fire. Whoomph. Flames burst across the chamber like a sudden storm. The gas ignited instantly, creating a wall of fire that ripped through the crowd of zombies. The infected caught fire immediately. Burning bodies stumbled blindly across the furnace floor, their shrieks echoing horribly through the factory. Anna dove behind a massive steel machine as heat blasted across the room. Marcus covered Lucas as burning debris fell from above. Victor grabbed Clara and pulled her away from the control panel just as flames shot across the balcony railing. The explosion didn't stop there. Old gas pipes burst open one after another. Boom, boom, boom. Sections of the ceiling began collapsing as fire consumed the ancient machinery. Anna shouted over the roaring flames. "Everyone out, now!" The survivors rushed toward a narrow emergency corridor at the far end of the furnace room. Behind them, the inferno continued spreading. Burning zombies staggered through the fire, collapsing one by one as the flames devoured them. Marcus glanced back as they ran. "Remind me never to let you cook dinner, Anna." Anna didn't reply, because something new had caught her attention. At the end of the corridor ahead, a massive steel door stood partially open. And beyond it, she could see daylight. But just before they reached it, a deafening rumble shook the entire factory. The ceiling above the furnace room collapsed completely, and the shockwave blasted through the corridor behind them. Anna realized something terrifying. The explosion hadn't just destroyed the horde. It had weakened the entire factory structure, and the building was now beginning to fall apart. The corridor shook violently as the explosion tore through the furnace room behind them. Dust and sparks blasted down the narrow passage while the survivors ran toward the steel door at the far end. The roar of the fire echoed through the factory like an angry beast waking from a long sleep. Anna pushed forward through the smoke. "Keep moving," she shouted. Behind them the ceiling began collapsing piece by piece. Rusted metal beams snapped loose and slammed into the floor, sending clouds of dust through the air. Marcus coughed and waved the smoke away from his face. "This whole place is coming down." Another thunderous crash echoed through the corridor. Boom! The furnace room had completely collapsed. The shockwave rolled through the hallway, rattling the walls and knocking loose old electrical panels. Wires sparked wildly, lighting the dark passage with flashes of blue light. Lucas stumbled as the floor shook beneath his feet. "Anna!" David grabbed his arm before he fell. "Stay on your feet." Ahead of them the steel door stood half open, daylight spilling through the gap like a beacon. Freedom. But the factory wasn't finished with them yet. As Victor and Maya reached the door first, the floor behind them suddenly cracked with a loud snap. Crack! Anna turned just in time to see the concrete splitting beneath Elias. "Watch out!" The ground gave way. Elias dropped suddenly as a section of the corridor floor collapsed into the lower level of the factory. He barely caught the edge of the broken concrete with one hand. For a moment he hung there above a dark drop. Below him twisted pipes and broken machinery waited like jagged teeth. Lucas rushed forward. Elias struggled to pull himself up, but the crumbling edge kept breaking under his weight. "Little help here," he grunted. Marcus immediately grabbed his arm. "Got you." The entire corridor shook again as more parts of the factory collapsed behind them. Anna glanced back. Flames were now spreading through the walls, racing along old oil lines and wooden supports. They had seconds. "Marcus!" she shouted. "Pull him up." Marcus planted his feet and heaved with all his strength. With a loud grunt he dragged Elias back onto the solid part of the floor just as another section collapsed behind them. David grabbed Elias' shoulder. "You good?" Elias nodded breathlessly. "Remind me never to follow Anna's plans again." Anna didn't even look back. "Move." They reached the steel door just as another explosion rocked the factory. Victor forced the heavy door open wider, and the survivors stumbled outside into the open courtyard. Fresh air hit them like a wave. For a moment they simply stood there, catching their breath. Behind them the massive factory building groaned like a wounded giant. Then the center smokestack cracked. A deep rumble followed. The survivors backed away as the front section of the factory collapsed inward, sending a massive cloud of dust and smoke into the sky. The furnace room was gone. And with it, most of the horde. Marcus stared at the collapsing structure. "Well," he said slowly, "that's one way to clear a building." Anna watched the ruins silently. They had survived, but the city around them was still full of danger. Victor stepped beside her. "You destroyed our home." Anna looked at him calmly. "I also destroyed the horde." Victor sighed. "Fair point." Then he glanced down the empty road stretching away from the factory. "We should leave before the noise attracts more." Anna nodded. The survivors gathered the gear and prepared to move again. But none of them noticed the movement inside the smoke-filled ruins behind them. Deep within the collapsed factory, something had survived the fire. And it was still moving. The survivors stood in the cracked courtyard outside the factory, watching the smoke rise into the gray sky. The once massive industrial building was now a broken skeleton of steel beams and shattered concrete. Flames still burned deep inside the ruins, sending thick black smoke drifting across the empty streets. Marcus wiped the dust from his jacket. Well, that place is definitely out of business. Lucas let out a nervous laugh. Pretty sure it was already out of business before we blew it up. For a moment, the group allowed themselves to breathe. The explosion had destroyed the horde that followed them. Hundreds of infected had burned in the furnace room. But Anna knew better than to relax for long. Noise like that never went unnoticed in a dead city. Victor stepped beside her, watching the ruins carefully. "You did what you had to do," he said. Anna glanced at him. "I know this place was your shelter." Victor shrugged. "In this world, nothing lasts forever." Maya walked over with Clara close behind her. Clara looked back at the smoking factory with wide eyes. "I grew up here," she said quietly. "My dad worked in this plant before everything collapsed." Victor placed a hand on her shoulder. "That was a long time ago." David checked the road leading away from the factory. The street stretched through rows of abandoned warehouses and broken streetlights. The wind pushed loose paper and debris across the asphalt. For now, it looked empty. But that could change quickly. Marcus looked toward Anna. "So what's the plan now?" Anna thought for a moment. They had more people now. 8 survivors instead of 5. More eyes. More weapons. But also more responsibility. "We keep moving," she said finally. "Where?" Anna turned toward the distant skyline of the ruined city. "Out of the industrial district. Too many traps here." Victor nodded slowly. "Agreed." Elias slung his shotgun over his shoulder. "I vote for somewhere with less exploding buildings." Lucas pointed toward the far end of the street. "There's an old rail line about 2 kilometers east. Might lead out of the city." Anna considered the idea. Railways usually cut through large areas of land. If the tracks were clear, they might give the group a safer path forward. "Then that's where we go." The survivors began gathering the gear. But just as they started walking away from the factory, Clara suddenly stopped. "Wait." Everyone turned. She was staring back toward the ruins. "What is it?" Maya asked. Clara pointed. At first, no one saw anything. Then Marcus squinted through the smoke. Something was moving. Not a zombie stumbling blindly. This movement was controlled. Slow. Deliberate. From the broken entrance of the collapsed furnace room, a dark figure slowly stepped out of the smoke. The creature's skin was burned black in places, its clothes torn and melted by the fire. Yet it still walked steadily forward. Its head lifted, and its pale eyes locked directly onto the survivors. Elias muttered quietly, "That one didn't die." The creature let out a low, broken growl. Then it began walking toward them. Not stumbling like the others. Walking. Anna felt a chill run down her spine. Because this infected was different. And if one survived the fire, there might be more. The figure stepped slowly out of the smoke. For a moment no one moved. The burned creature looked almost human at first glance, but the closer it came, the clearer the truth became. Its skin was blackened and cracked from the fire, patches of raw flesh visible beneath melted clothing. Yet it walked upright, strong, purposeful, not the slow, mindless shuffle the survivors had grown used to. Marcus frowned. That thing should be dead. Elias raised his shotgun. It probably just doesn't know it yet. The creature stopped about 30 meters away. Its pale eyes moved across the group, studying them one by one. Anna felt a strange tension in the air. Zombies usually rushed blindly toward the living. This one didn't. It tilted its head slightly, almost like it was thinking. Lucas whispered nervously, "Why is it just standing there?" Victor slowly lifted his rifle. "Because it's deciding." Then the creature moved. Fast. Much faster than a normal infected. It sprinted forward with a sudden burst of speed, closing half the distance in seconds. "Move!" Anna shouted. Marcus swung his metal rod as the creature lunged toward him. Clang! The blow connected with its shoulder, but instead of collapsing like a normal zombie, the burned creature barely staggered. It grabbed Marcus' jacket with surprising strength. Marcus struggled. "What the?" Anna drove her spear forward, piercing the creature's chest. For a moment it froze. Then it grabbed the spear shaft and snapped it in half. Lucas stared in disbelief. It just broke that. Elias fired his shotgun. Boom! The blast threw the creature backward across the cracked pavement. It landed hard, then slowly pushed itself back to its feet. Still moving. Still coming. "Okay," Marcus said breathlessly, "that's definitely new." The burned infected charged again, roaring this time, a deep, twisted sound that echoed down the empty street. Victor fired 2 quick rifle shots. Bang! Bang! One bullet struck its leg, slowing it slightly. But it kept coming. Maya stepped forward and fired her pistol. Crack! The bullet struck the creature's head, snapping it sideways. For a moment the world seemed to freeze. The burned infected stood motionless. Then it collapsed onto the pavement. Silence fell across the courtyard. Lucas slowly exhaled. "Please tell me that's the last of those." Marcus walked closer to the body, keeping his weapon ready. The creature lay still. Smoke still rose from its burned skin. He nudged it carefully with his boot. No movement. Marcus looked back toward Anna. "Looks dead now." Anna wasn't convinced. She stared at the corpse carefully. This infected had survived the explosion, survived the fire, and fought harder than anything they had faced before. Victor crouched beside the body. "I've seen something like this once before," he said quietly. Anna turned to him. "What do you mean?" Victor looked up. "Sometimes the infection changes." Lucas swallowed. "You mean they evolve?" Victor nodded slowly. "Or something close to it." Anna looked back toward the ruined factory behind them. The smoke continued to rise into the sky. If creatures like this existed now, the world was becoming even more dangerous. She tightened her grip on the broken spear handle. "Then we better keep moving. Because somewhere out there, more of them might be waiting." The survivors moved cautiously along the cracked street, the ruins of the furnace factory still smoking behind them. Every sound, the creak of a broken streetlight, the distant clang of metal, even the wind brushing against shattered windows, made them flinch. Anna led the way, her eyes scanning every corner. Victor followed closely, keeping Clara and Maya in view. Marcus, Lucas, David, and Elias brought up the rear, their weapons ready. The burned infected they had just fought lay motionless behind them, but Anna didn't trust that silence. "Railway should be just up ahead," she said, keeping her voice low. "It'll give us a path out of the industrial district." Lucas wiped sweat from his forehead. "If we survive the next 10 minutes, maybe we'll actually get out of this mess." The group crested a small hill, and there it was, the old rail line. Rusted tracks stretched through broken warehouses and abandoned factories, disappearing into the horizon. Wooden sleepers were cracked, and weeds had begun claiming the path, but the line looked intact enough to walk along. "Looks safer than these streets," Victor said, examining the tracks. "Fewer corners for surprises." Anna nodded. "Keep your eyes open. We still don't know who, or what, is out here." The group stepped onto the rails, their boots clanging against the metal. The rhythmic noise seemed deafening in the empty city, but it was a small price to pay for open sightlines. The further they went, the more open the area became. Broken streetlights gave way to twisted power poles and collapsed buildings, revealing the horizon and giving them a clear view for hundreds of meters. David paused suddenly, pointing to the far end of the tracks. "Look, there." A plume of smoke rose from between the broken warehouses. Anna squinted. "Not fire, cooking smoke." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "So someone's alive." Victor's expression hardened. "And probably armed. Could be friendly, or not." The survivors slowed their pace, moving cautiously toward the source of the smoke. The tracks led them past broken freight cars and rusted machinery, the smell of decay thick in the air. Clara kept close to Maya, her crossbow at the ready, scanning every shadow. As they approached the small clearing where the smoke rose, they saw signs of habitation. Makeshift tents made from tarps and metal sheets, small campfires, and stockpiles of supplies suggested a semi-permanent settlement. But the place was eerily quiet. No children, no chatter, no normal activity. Anna held up a hand. "Wait here. Let me see what we're dealing with." She moved forward cautiously, her spear in hand, eyes alert for movement. Suddenly, a figure appeared from behind a tent, a tall man with a shotgun raised. His face was hidden under a hood, and his stance was defensive. "Who's there?" he demanded. "Step away." Anna raised her hand slowly. "We're survivors. Just passing through. No trouble." The man didn't lower his weapon. Victor stepped forward from the group. "We mean no harm. There's a horde behind us. We're looking for safe passage." The tall man glanced back at the smoke of the factory in the distance. His eyes narrowed, then he lowered his shotgun slightly. "You came from the furnace district, didn't you?" he asked, his tone wary. Anna nodded. "Yes, we fought, and survived." The man studied her carefully. Then he gestured toward the clearing. "Fine. But stay there. You're not leaving this spot until I know you're not bringing trouble." Anna exhaled slowly, the first hint of safety in days. But something in the back of her mind warned her, even friendly survivors could bring danger. Elias muttered quietly, "At least we're not burned to a crisp this time." Lucas gave a nervous laugh. "Speak for yourself." Anna's eyes scanned the horizon. More challenges awaited, she knew. But for now, they had made it out of the industrial hell. The survivors stepped cautiously into the clearing, keeping the distance from the settlement's makeshift tents and fences. The man with the shotgun watched their every move, his stance tense but not openly hostile. Anna stayed at the front, spear ready, while Victor and Maya flanked Clara and the rest of the group. The settlement was small, only about a dozen tents scattered across a dusty open area. A few small campfires burned, sending flickering light across the walls of old warehouses surrounding the site. Tools, barrels, and scavenged supplies lay stacked neatly near each dwelling, signs of organization in a world that had long lost it. The tall man gestured for them to stop near the center of the clearing. "I'm Cade," he said, his voice low and measured. "You say you're survivors. I'll believe that, for now. But anyone coming from the Furnace District brings trouble. You need to prove you're not a threat." Anna nodded slowly. "We fought the Horde, survived, and didn't bring anyone with us, except Victor's team. We mean no harm." Cade studied her, then glanced at Victor. "You've got a group of your own." Victor nodded. "3 of us. We joined her because we survived together back in the industrial district." Cade's eyes lingered on Victor for a moment before returning to Anna. "We don't like strangers. You're lucky I don't shoot first." Anna kept her voice calm. "We're not looking for a fight. Just a place to rest and plan our next move." A younger woman emerged from behind one of the tents. She carried a small pot of water and handed it to Anna's group. "Sit," she said. "Eat, drink, but watch yourselves. Not everyone here trusts newcomers." Anna exchanged a look with Victor. His jaw tightened, clearly uncomfortable with being on someone else's turf. Marcus muttered under his breath, "This is gonna be fun." Lucas elbowed him. "Not exactly fun. More like tense survival." The group settled near one of the small fires. Sparks danced in the air as Anna and Victor assessed the settlement. Tools and weapons lined the fences, axes, hammers, and makeshift spears, ready at a moment's notice. It was clear that the people here were cautious, disciplined, and prepared for danger. Clara stayed close to Anna, glancing nervously at the tents. "Do you think we can trust them?" she asked quietly. Anna looked toward Cade, who was now inspecting the far edge of the clearing, watching the skyline. "For now, maybe. But we can't let our guard down. Any settlement can become a trap, especially with the Horde still roaming outside." Victor frowned. "I don't like being told to sit and wait. We've survived too long to follow rules blindly." Anna placed a hand on his shoulder. "This is about strategy. Patience can save lives." From the corner of her eye, Anna noticed movement at the perimeter of the settlement. Shadows slipping between warehouses, careful but deliberate. Not zombies, too precise. Her gut tightened. Something new was coming, something human, and it was watching them. She whispered to Victor, "Stay alert. This isn't over, not by a long shot." Cade's voice carried across the fire. "Eat quickly, rest if you must, but don't stray from the camp. Not tonight." Anna nodded silently, knowing that even in temporary safety, the world outside, and now possibly inside, was still deadly. Because in the city after the apocalypse, trust was always temporary. And danger was always nearby. Night had fallen over the settlement. The fires from the small camp flickered against the warehouse walls, casting long, dancing shadows across the cracked ground. The survivors huddled near the fire, eating cold rations and cleaning weapons. Every snap of a twig, every distant echo made their muscles tense. Anna remained alert. Something had shifted at the edge of the settlement. Shadows moved too deliberately for it to be the wind. She nudged Victor quietly. "See those?" Victor followed her gaze toward the warehouse perimeter. "Yeah, they're not zombies. Too precise. Too coordinated." Clara clutched her crossbow tightly. "Humans. Maybe, Anna whispered. Or worse, people who think they're in charge. Marcus muttered, great. Just what we need. Friendly fire waiting to happen. Anna motioned for the group to stay low. She picked up her spear and moved along the edge of the tents, scanning the shadows. The figure she had noticed earlier had disappeared, replaced now by more, at least 3 distinct silhouettes slipping between the buildings, moving toward the settlement's edge but staying out of sight. David spoke softly, they're observing us. Could be scouts. Anna nodded. Could be a trap. She scanned the area again. We need to know what we're dealing with before anyone makes a move. Lucas, Elias, cover our backs. Marcus, stay with me. Victor, keep the others close. The group spread cautiously, moving behind barrels and tents for cover. Anna led the way toward the closest shadow. Every step brought a louder creak from the wooden boards and rusted metal around the warehouses. Suddenly, a soft metallic clink echoed in the night. One of the figures had stepped on a discarded can. The shadows froze. Then, almost instantly, one of them raised a hand in a silent signal. Within moments, another shadow emerged, this one taller, wielding a crude weapon. Anna signaled for the group to hold position. From the shadows came a voice, low and taunting. You shouldn't have come here. The figure stepped into the dim firelight. A bandana covered the lower half of his face. His eyes were sharp, calculating. 2 others emerged behind him, each armed with makeshift weapons, pipes, knives, and a crossbow. Victor muttered under his breath, friendly neighborhood greeting committee. Anna didn't respond. She slowly stepped forward, spear angled. We don't want trouble, she said firmly. We're just passing through. The man laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Passing through. In our territory. Not likely. You survive by luck, but luck doesn't last long here. Clara raised her crossbow, trembling slightly. They're going to attack us. Anna glanced back at the group. Prepare yourselves. Don't fire until I give the signal. The tallest man lunged forward suddenly, throwing a pipe toward Anna. She sidestepped just in time. Marcus swung his rod, intercepting a knife aimed at Elias. Sparks flew as metal collided with metal. The night erupted into chaos. Shadows moved quickly, attacking in waves. Anna's group fought defensively, barely keeping the intruders at bay. Anna realized immediately, these weren't just desperate survivors. They were organized, dangerous, and if they didn't hold them off, the settlement could fall before dawn. The survivors regrouped at the edge of the railway clearing. Their breaths came in shaky bursts, weapons still in hand, muscles tense from the constant fight. The settlement had held, barely, and the shadowy intruders had retreated into the night after realizing this group wasn't easy prey. Anna looked around at her team. Dust and soot covered their faces, clothes torn, some scrapes and bruises decorating their skin. Yet, their eyes held determination. We made it, she said quietly, a small smile tugging at her lips. Tonight, we survived, and we'll survive again tomorrow. Victor adjusted his rifle. I'm just glad no one's missing. Elias smirked, wiping blood from a shallow cut. For now. Marcus leaned against a rusted barrel, letting out a long sigh. You know, maybe next time we pick a less dramatic shelter. Lucas laughed quietly. In this world, there's no such thing. Anna turned to face the camera. If this moment had one, a message for anyone watching. If you've been following our journey, thank you. Surviving the apocalypse isn't easy, but together we can face anything, even fire, hordes, and the unknown. Maya stepped forward, her eyes reflecting the faint firelight. Every day is a fight. Every step is a story. And we're just getting started. Anna nodded. So, if you liked surviving the night with us, hit subscribe. Join us for the next chapter of our journey. There's still a long road ahead, more dangers, and more stories to tell. Victor added, smirking slightly, and if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like it. It helps others find our story, and maybe even survive a little longer themselves. Clara spoke softly, leave a comment. Tell us what you'd do in our place, and maybe you'll see yourself in the next story. Anna raised her hand as the group gathered close together. Until next time, stay alert, stay alive, and remember, even in the darkest nights, there's always a spark of hope. The group slowly walked down the railway line toward the horizon, their silhouettes fading into the early morning mist. Behind them, the factory ruins smoldered, a reminder of the night's battles. Ahead, the city remained dangerous, yet full of possibilities.